21 years as president of the Charleston Branch of the NAACP, Dot Scott is retiring. Today, I talk one-on-one with her about her time as president for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Dot Scott, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
I was glad to be back.
Yes, ma'am. I know that me and you were talking on the phone a couple of months ago, and I know I was at work at the time when I was speaking to you, and I remember it was right there, Rivers and Ashley Phosphate, and you told me, and I didn't believe at the time, that you were going to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked on the news, sure enough, you're retiring next tomorrow, actually.
Actually, tomorrow's my step-down date. My tenure, really elected part, is through the end of the year. But to facilitate a smooth transition, I thought that I wanted to make sure my name wasn't being considered, or anyone thought that maybe I'm still in that position. And I just thought we'd have more folks that would be willing to say, you know, I can do this. I would like to do this, and that's the reason for my taking 2 months. I'm kind of still in the 2 month that I had promised, but it's been an awesome opportunity to serve in this capacity, and I'm looking forward to some time off.
Yes, ma'am. Off. How did we get here with you being retired after 21 years?
Well, I think a combination of things. I think it's a good time for me. Personally, it's a good time for me. And I think that while we may think that the NAACP, oftentimes folks say, well, what does the NAACP do? We do everything people think we don't do, because with the ability to communicate, folks get in touch, and I've been here long enough that my name is pretty much recognized. Sure. So I can make a call and say, this is Dot Scott with the NAACP, can I talk to whomever I think I need to talk with? So that necessity to go out and do a press conference or to march in the street, which I still embrace, engagement, public protest,
sure.
All of that, at a time such as what we've gone through with the pandemic. It has worked very well to be able to call, because problems don't take a break. It don't take vacation. In fact, I think problems don't even go to sleep. So there are a lot of folks still hurting, a lot of folks trying to get things resolved, and whatever we can do, that's what we do.
But Dot, is this a day late and a dollar short when it comes to your retirement?
I'm not sure of that question. Day late and a dollar short. Is it that I've stayed? I'm not sure. No. I spent 31 years at Bellsouth.
Sure.
And that journey was not easy. And when I say easy, I'm referring to issues around civil rights. I came in at a time when we had a situation where African American females could not work at the phone company and be anything other than an operator.
Sure.
And for me to be able to get in as in a clerical position, and then be denied being able to move forward because those other jobs that I thought I could do well, I can do that, those were denied. So that fight in me started really early, because when you can feel the discrimination, then you know what others feel. And since I'm a little bit more vocal than the average person, and someone said tenacious, I don't want to refer to myself like that, but that's how I'm moving, because there's not too many things that I think, if it's the right thing to do, that I wouldn't attempt to get it done. And having worked with so many African Americans with the company, and were able to look at it, wasn't just you, Doc. This is not about you. This is what the people say. This is the way it is. So the fight started early, and when I saw that if you fight hard enough and you do the things that you know is right, even those folks that don't want to respect you, they will eventually. You may get respect from them before you get a like from them. But if I had to choose between liking and respecting, it's hands down. I'm working for the respect because I think that's when they'll listen.
You talk about time, obviously. As you know, the city's changed. And I know that you've had a good 21 years here at the NAACP. But Don, I have to ask you this. And this, I mean, I hate to be, tough on you. But
it's tough.
The city of Charleston became the most gentrified city under your watch as president of NAACP of Charleston.
You are absolutely right. And what do we have to do with the gentrification? How do we do that? How do we stop the gentrification when, first thing, I don't sit on council. Okay, so I don't have a word in that. I have the unfortunate or fortunate situation where I live in North Charleston, but I'm president of the Charleston Branch NAACP. Now, a lot of what happened, it's things you have no control. Folks are going to move here. The Fed is going to get what they want, and then the makeup of your municipality, all of that had much to do. I was thinking only recently, as I contemplating, let me make the announcement about the retirement, is that I remember working with our former mayor, and I remember him walking to Columbia.
Oh, yeah.
I remember Greenberg,
yes,
when he apologized to the NAACP.
Right.
High noon, City Hall,
right,
on the balcony.
Sure.
All of those things, well, we can continue to fight, and maybe if we weren't fighting, we would have been gentrified even earlier than now, because economics going to dictate. I had an interview with one of the Post and Courier's agent, writer,
right,
this week, and she was talking about how much she loves Charleston. It's become a place where folks are putting this on the top of their list is where they want to come. And then we have the unfortunate situation that, let's say where we were on the east side, where our office was on the east side. And we had been there, I guess, about 8 years or more. We had been there. And then, because of the growth in the city, the loss of a lot of the buildings down there that belong to African American, the descendants of that are living there, the taxes for them to maintain the property, even if they left it, if their forefather left it without a mortgage on it, keeping up those buildings is a whole different story for when you look at the economic needs of those descendants. So all of those property began to get lost. And as you gentrify in terms of houses and who lives there, then the schools become not schools where black kids are going to continue to stay, because if you can't live in the neighborhood and you have to be transported there are all of those things that a civil rights organization can't change that, because as long as they're following the law, what do we say? We have dealt with the issue of, let's say, police issues around those issues. And oftentimes we as a group, as the NAACP, because we've got different NAACP units in all of different places, we usually deal on a one-on-one basis, because I found out that oftentimes when there's an issue, let's say the Sutherland case, when that happened, I was pleased that both the mom and the attorney called and said, we just need you to be there with us. That meant everything to me, because most time when something happens, That's an after the fact. We can't undo what has already been done. And if law enforcement and attorneys are already involved, it's not a whole lot we can say. Not much. We can stand with the family and support them and saying what happened is wrong, and hopefully the authorities will make sure that it's handled properly. But I think that we do more one-on-one that no one will ever know about, because I often liken it to this. People have individual problems all the time. Very seldom you have a group of one person dealing with an issue. Let's say there was a problem with Boeing, and I have met with Boeing in our office and been able to get some things resolved. That's a little bit different than the individual problem folks have. Now, there's no problem with me with, say, the police department here, because this is where the NAACP works. This is where, while I live in North Charleston, this is what this branch does here. But that's the way we work things.
And you talked about the buildings, obviously, that haven't been sold and whatnot on the east side. But let me ask you, in your tenure for 21 years as a president, why do you think the NAACP hasn't been able to own their own building?
Well, that's an easy one. We are not allowed to own building. The NAACP doesn't even own. The national office doesn't own. Not one branch, not one. We don't own property, because the first thing, when you challenge folks, they find a reason, and let's see what we are going to accuse them of what. The first thing they go at is your real estate. So that's just a given. We do not own any building. Okay. None.
Now, going back to the east side, Ms. Dot, what percentage of the east side has been gentrified?
I'm not the best math person, but I would say that at least 90%. I really do believe 90% of the east side. Wow. And there are some areas where you've got the apartment complex farther down. Yeah. That's a little bit different. But the area that we're in, absolutely.
Wow. So,
area we were in.
Yeah, and as you know, Charleston went from 80% black to 30% now, obviously black, over the past decade. How can that be when blacks actually have a higher fertility rate than Caucasians?
Well, they're going somewhere. The blacks, the fertility rates are right, but where are they living? Where are they staying? If they can't live here, where are we sitting right now here on Spring and Rutledge? Right. This building that we're in belongs to an African American person. There was a time when this entire corridor on black businesses. Sure. But as those things change for different reasons, and the cost of real estate, the cost of taxes, even the houses that were left in what I call heirs property in the area, the taxes going up so much that some of the heirs cannot afford to pay the taxes that's owed on this property. And I don't think realtors are being kind to them in terms of, this is what we'll give you for it, this is what we're going to give you for it. You don't want to go through a foreclosure or tax, lose it that way. Sure. But that's what we're looking at. Economics, the lack of diversity, and I don't think the powers to be is the city is. I guess it's like a business that we've got to make the money, and whomever is in charge, when they're able to do that, that's further in their head to say, look how much this city has grown. And it's sad that the absence of minorities is not a big thing. So they're not here. I had this conversation just, I think, 2 days ago about the need for minorities to be on the peninsula. We've got folks that work the hospitality.
Sure.
We can still get them. Most of them don't live down here. Most of them, and I'm getting complaints about how even the Uber drivers
Oh, yes.
and how they are handling, what areas they handle, the fact that they get paid more if they deliver someone from one area than from the other. So all of those things factor into why black folks are not on the peninsula. If we've got a police department that we're able to have integrated, tell me why we can't have a fire department that's integrated. Why is it that we can have a fire department where minorities are not hired there, one or two or few, but yet those big fire trucks, those big dump trucks that pick up the garbage,
Sure.
those are the kind of inequalities I think that dictates where and how people live. Because you have to earn the money, and living on Charleston is not a cheap venture, and the fittest is going to they'll survive. I think we're in dire straits with minorities still living on the peninsula.
So, how many black businesses are there right now on the peninsula?
I have no idea, but I'm old enough to remember everything on St. Philip's Street.
Sure.
I mean, I worked there at that office building when Sears was there. I know I'm telling my age, but when you look at from Spring
Sure.
back to Calhoun Street.
Sure.
I mean, all of that on King Street.
Oh, yeah.
My sister had a business there on the corner of King, right there, Stitching the Style. It was a tailor shop. She was there for 35 years. And when the owner decided to sell that building, I think that was part of her demise. She's passed on, but she was there. And all the car carriages, all of those business, everybody did business with her. But when she could no longer afford a place to run her business, she had a tailor shop. The business closed, and you can't do that type of business from home.
Right. So when exactly did this rent increase took place here on the peninsula for most of these black businesses?
I have no idea. I think it was gradual, but it was accelerated once it got started. We're blessed to be able to have this space,
Sure.
but here again, this building is owned by a minority, and hopefully there's grace in how we were able to get this building at a short period of time. But it's just too expensive for folks to live here. The natives are not the natives, I don't know to say they're not welcome. No, they cannot accept the welcome even if they were, because you can't afford to live on here. I do believe that the city can they can do more in terms of making sure, because when you start with we're going to have affordable housing, and then we'll allow the groups that has the less clout to be managing that, because we've got the pastors group that works along with the city that are supposed to be building all these houses. It's been over 10 years since the pastors group was supposed to be building these houses, right? And I remember because they did one right on the corner, and I at one of the NAACP banquet, the two young girls they were geniuses, spelling bee geniuses. We recognized them there, and that was when Nancy Pelosi was here then.
Right.
So we recognized them then, but where the affordable housing? Even when the churches are gone, you've tried to figure out. We can find churches, and we can have the city converts it, and it becomes a apartment complex.
Right.
But it's not for the least among us.
Well, let me ask you this: what has been the NAACP's plan that is for housing security for these minorities on the peninsula and the rest of Charleston?
Okay, when you said the NAACP plan, at a local level, we don't. You got to, and sadly enough, we operate a lot in the reactive. To protect something that's there, protect civil rights. That's what we do more now at the state level, and hopefully the folks that we elect to represent us. Because while we NAACP, we're still black folks.
Sure.
So the people that represent us, and we need to hold them accountable for why when they're at the table, because we're not at the table.
Okay.
So we most of the time are acting in a response, what I call a responsive mode where decisions been made. So when folks ask, well, why the NAACP doesn't do that? The core mission is civil rights violation. I mean, that's it. To make sure that the way everybody else is treated, we are treated equally fair. And it's a big lift when folks expect the volunteers at the NAACP. Now, you guys need to also not be in a responsive mode. You need to be proactive in doing some things. That is why I have always been involved with groups like the ACLU, the League of Women Voters, the YWCA, all of those groups that pay attention to those kinds of stuff. Because one thing people keep forgetting, we're all volunteers. There's no way in these branches anybody's being paid to do anything. So I'm not using that to say, well, because you're not paid, you wouldn't. You just can't do that. No, that's why we elect council people to pay attention to certain things. And we elect the school board people to pay attention to things. Everybody's got a role. And so when we get involved with making sure that certain people get elected to boards, because we're nonpartisan, we have to be careful even about that. But we've got folks in their prospective role that if they said, NAACP, we need you to show up here, we need to show. But that's why we elect people that we feel that's going to look out for the good of all of, say, the school, but all of the children.
Sure.
So that's it. But it'd be a heavy lift if we had to take on the whole, every facet.
So let me ask you this. Speaking of the Peninsula schools, what can-do attitude, Ms. Dot, and the 5-point plan does the NAACP have to help keep open the Peninsula's only public high school, Burke High School?
We don't have any plan. Haven't heard of any plan. I sure would want to be a part of that. If you remember when Rivers, we're standing out there.
Yes.
We had the children out there with us.
Right.
The black kids ended up having to go through the back with the front. So these are battles we've been in. But I would like to see that as we elect more minorities in these positions, that they are more vocal and not be ashamed to make it clear what you're doing. Because I find a lot of times people who are black or minorities and stuff, don't want to publicly say that. I have so many friends that are not African American that they will say it. They will, and that's why I can work with them.
Sure.
But we need to be bold enough that we don't support the NAACP like we should. We don't join it. But the very same people that don't will be, well, why doesn't the NAACP do this? Well, 21 years later, I can tell them this. There are people in the NAACP, not only in Charleston, in other areas, and some branches are more active than others, that we give so much nobody ever sees. I liken it to, if I've got a problem and I've got an attorney representing me, I don't want my business in the street. So it would appear that, well, what do they do? If you could only ask some of the people, what do we do, what we get fixed? And it's not just black folks.
Sure.
I've had couples who've got interracial children.
Sure.
They're talking to the NAACP. The NAACP is quietly doing what we need to do without putting their business in the street, but making sure that the offender hears from us and we're able to get things done simply because of that.
So let's go right to it, membership. How much has your membership in this particular organization increased by in the past 4 years?
Oh, wow. Well, our membership, let's just say how much it has increased since I've been here. We have had, if you compared us to all of the branches in the state of South Carolina, We're the second largest branch in the state of South Carolina. We don't normally go out and help it. Well, we've got this many members. We've got life members that are forever life members. We've got folks that are members because membership can be bought annually. Some folks that have need to renew. Now, we have not been in the calling folks up in the last year or so and said, can you join? But we get membership in almost every day.
Okay.
Almost every day somebody will join. And most of the time, folks, you don't have to ask them to join when they call you. They somehow equate that with, if I'm not a member, they're not going to help. That's never a question that's ever asked.
So, during the pandemic, Ms. Dot, how much did the membership actually decrease by?
Well, I don't think there's a direct. We don't, because we don't usually count whether somebody renew or not.
Okay.
So that's not something. If we made an assessment, let's see how many we haven't done it. We're too busy doing all the other stuff with the pandemic. And yes, answering these questions and doing, meeting with these folks. Virtually or whatever, but because I thought our primary goal is to fix what's broken. If people, and we're not doing it in the aggregate, most of what we do is individual folks call and say, I got a problem, I can't afford an attorney, I can't do this. I've got a girl right now, she's one of 3 that works for this big real estate company, and now she's got an attorney that I spoke with again this morning, yesterday, and bless his heart, because his mom actually, and this is a non-African American attorney, but his mom was a part of the NAACP way back and still is involved in it. And I'm saying it warmed my heart because we have to be cognizant of the fact that, but for the intermingling and the support of people that are not African American, we could not have done, wouldn't still be doing what we're doing now. So those are the stuff I really embrace. But me picking up the phone and calling someone and say, we've got a problem. I don't care if it's a big company, a small company. It's far better to do those things. And nobody wants folks to know. I mean, folks don't want us to say, I fixed this for John Brown yesterday, and we went in and there was a problem with his mortgage and they're messing with. There's all kinds of stuff that the minority, because that's basically who calls us, that there are things that folks some businesses do wrong and know they're wrong. Absolutely know what they're doing is wrong, but if nobody challenges and nobody's saying nothing, nobody's on their behalf, I get it because I've been through it. I've been through being the one that's being discriminated against because I dared to speak up. It's not that the other folks didn't think that what was happening, but they weren't willing to. That thing was always, I don't want to lose my job. And you have to understand that.
So, now, Ms. Dot, what percentage of your membership donations come from actually corporations?
Well, our donations, not necessarily membership, because there are many companies, most of the companies, they may not want to join the NAACP. They want to support the NAACP. And I have been blessed to have a relationship with some of the bigger companies that really support us. For us not to have always this ongoing asking somebody join. I don't do well with the nickel and dime stuff. The $30 is wonderful, but when you have to pay the rent and you have to pay, when I said the rent and all the utilities, anything that it takes for us to run this office, because nobody gets paid nothing. So our corporation helps us, and then, like I said, one of the things we did once that I really am looking forward to do it again is when they had the opening of the African American Monument, and we took those kids down to Washington. Those are the kinds of stuff when the climate's bad and all of the viruses decide not to come back, that we can still get more engaged with the students, because that's a core thing that I think that we need to continue, revisit, really activate. What else does the NAACP do? Because when that school, the school that was the children that we did the academy, when we took those kids to Washington, There's so many schools that we should be able to make donation, and the things that the kids use that's above and beyond the normal stuff. Those are the kind of stuff I want to see. The kids will then begin to know who the NAACP is, because most of these kids, the young ones, they may have heard about the NAACP, but they have no interest in getting involved simply because their parents are not involved. So we've got some work to do.
And going back to the membership, Ms. Dot, how many of your actual membership and donations actually come from members of the organization?
From what?
From members.
Of the organization?
Yes, ma'am, the actual membership members.
Well, that's where, if they're members, that means they paid for their membership. I'm not sure I'm clear.
Oh, no worries. I know that, you mentioned you get some donations from corporations. How many of your donations actually come from actual members of the organization?
Oh, the people we do the most work for, the African American, we don't get a lot of donation. We have some, what I call, and most of them are passed on, that will think nothing of sending you some money. We don't do fundraiser except for the one thing we do. When we have that banquet, that's all it is. We're going to tap into the corporation, and we've had wonderful support. And then those who come and attend, they pay for a ticket, So that's where we raise. Other than that, there were times, and this will tell you how old I am. We would stand on the corner right there going West Ashley, and with what I call the firemen.
Yes, the booths.
And let them drop in.
Sure.
We actually did that to raise funds.
Wow.
But thanks for those days are gone. And blessed we are, because there are organizations, while they may have their own reason why they publicly don't make a big thing out of it, I am so pleased now that we've gotten to a point now where we have banquets. These people are showing up.
Yes.
When I'm here and the president of Boeing is going to come to the banquet, these are the things that says these folks are willing to not only give us their funds, but make public their association. Association kind of denotes that we support the work that they do, and that's the important thing.
And putting that aside, Ms. Dot, how has the Charleston NAACP fought that is against the white establishment?
Well, I don't know what we even think about it as the white establishment, because every now and then, and it's not often enough, we find out that we've got some white folks who are fighting harder than us black folks to make sure that there's some equality going on here. And my hope is that those numbers grow. We have to figure out, because of NAACP, all of the older minorities, black folks, they understood, but I think our young people, particularly minority young people, if we're talking to NAACP, there's so much we still need to do, because unless we can engage them at an age where it matters, and there's so many kids now, they're willing to get involved. We need to do a better job of reaching out to them and bringing them in. So one of the things I thought about with me leaving, I'm saying, you know what, I actually asked one of the young college of Charleston male, would he be interested in coming in and take a leadership role? That I've been doing that a couple of years, because I kept saying, we need to at least bring them in, and then position them to move into the leadership position, and maybe that in itself would bring other young people to the table. So I think that has to happen. It must happen.
Has the Charleston NAACP over your years become stagnant?
Oh no, and I say that because if there's anything that I'm adamant about,
yes, ma'am.
I don't know what. See, people like to see you doing, and they don't believe you're doing. It's always that, and liking it like you may not see that ant building that nest, but you're doing it. And I say that because right now, if I was to pick up the phone and call the secretary and say, how many calls we got this week? Here's how it works. We get calls, even with this store, no one's in the office. She lives in Johns Island. She gets the call, takes the message, and every day I get the message. And if it's not before 6 o'clock in the evening, I return the call. If that call doesn't go through, if I couldn't leave a message, whatever, we handle the calls. We call the businesses. If we need to meet, then we do that. So our job here is not to, let's do things so folks, we've got enough organization doing what I call things that are very visible. That's not what we're about. Okay. It's like, if I've got an attorney, I don't need him to tell you my business, okay? I don't need him to publicize what's going on with me. So if these folks are having problems, and we get a lot of problems with the school issues and stuff with the kids, we get a lot of those. But we just handle it because, at least for me, it's not, let me tell you what we did here. I am satisfied that in this 21 years, that if there's a problem, and if anyone really knows me, we're going to deal with that problem. And we don't have to tell the parents. When I had this white couple who's got an adopted son that's 17 years old, that's an African-American child. And there was some legal issue with him. And they called me, and they lived, I want to say Goose Creek, because even though there are branches on that side, somehow they know how to get to the Charleston Branch. And for me to make the call that they wanted me to make, I remember, like, the dad got on the phone and the mom got on the phone, and they talked with me, told me what else they were looking at doing. I gave them the input that I thought would be the one they needed. And sometimes I just tell them to ask them would they be willing to talk with me. I get a lot of things done because they rather not talk with me. They would just somehow, let's go ahead and see if we can get this worked out. Because if a business felt like, well, there's a question, we could have handled that a little bit different. Why? And I'm so gracious when they do that. I don't feel like, oh, that you got to win. No, that's not what it's about. If we get that thing resolved, it's fine. So that after they call me and whatever call I made, and I know I made a couple of them, 2 days later they called me and she said, we got him we picked him up today, and he's in the back seat, and I want you to talk to him. I don't know these people, I've never seen them, none. And they said, we're actually going out of town for a couple of weeks, and then we'll be back. But we have got, I mean, the people that have crossed my path, the people that I found out that they weren't African Americans, that have done so much to make life better for us, it has given me a perspective that most people won't see that in me, because they only see when you, I don't know why they don't decipher that. Why would I be talking out there just to be talking if we didn't have a problem? It's like, let me just go ahead and give you some medicine here just in case so you don't. But why would we do that? So why would I be out there talking unless we're trying to get a message out? And I think that's the hardest hurdle that I think that NAACP, but surely me, had to leap over to say, if we need to address it, do you know another way that we should address it? So we find out easily that if you have that initial conversation and it doesn't work, then maybe you need to let these people neighbor know what's going on with it. In other words, the city of Charleston need to know, because there are always going to be pros and cons on either side. So we prefer not to have to stand on the corner. But if it means that that's what we need to do to get the message out, that's what we have to do. No permanent enemies, no permanent friends. I have no personal dislike with people. But if it's the mayor, if it's the chief, if there's an issue, let me go to them and let me have that conversation and see if we get it resolved.
What type of conversation, Ms. Dot, do you want the NAACP to have with the Charleston County School Board to say, hey, we don't want these public schools to be privatized?
Well, that's the kind of conversation that I've got some ugly picture and people's out there with me at one of those public school meetings. It has been some years ago.
Okay.
I think we just have to make sure that those who are representative on the school board, that they're thinking beyond, and I don't know how we fix it. I really don't have a good answer for that other than for us to be involved. And those school board folks, if you would have conversation, you would know how many times there are about 4 of them
Yes.
that I call. We have those conversations, and I know they're like, you know, I'm serious, because I believe in talking directly rather than just going to make the public stuff. Now, whether that makes any difference, I have actually seen there are some times, and whether I was the whatever that made it go in the direction that I thought it would go, if it had any effect at all. I really don't know that, but I find it easier to call folks and say, when you get a minute or so, and it's never a minute, because I talk, it's like 30 minutes, no less than 30 minutes. The education of these kids are really serious, and I don't mind asking the hard question. And while I would not want to hurt anybody's feelings, but feelings don't come into play if we're dealing with trying to educate these kids. And so that's just the way I handle it. And it's been a while, and basically because of the pandemic that we haven't been out there publicly, so out of sight, out of mind, and that's what people follow. What does the NAACP do? And I say, that's the question you don't want to ask us, Scott. You know, because the people who are asking it, I don't have to answer them because they are not even involved in the NAACP. You know, I can't go to ask the business, well, what do you all do? And there's no representation there. You know, it's like me not asking my mayor, but going to somebody else's mayor, and what do you do? So I think that we have to have a working relationship and be able to at least communicate, not just talk about it, stand on the corner and make noise. There has to be some kind of dialogue going to make any changes. And I am really pleased to say, for the most part, we get things done. Folks will publicly make you think that they're not paying them any attention. We're not paying them any attention. You said that, you know, I've been called them out and said, we're not paying her any attention. And yes, you remember.
Right. What is your relationship with the mayor right now?
Oh, this mayor?
Well, the North Charleston mayor.
Oh, we're friends. I really believe that when I say friends, I think he has a healthy respect for me, and I do the same for him. He is his personality is such that he doesn't like to be challenged, and I guess most powerful people don't. And I think we have come to understand that. What I've got to talk to him about. There was time he told me, well, why you just don't call me on my phone? You've got my number. Because I like to follow channels. Let me go through, nothing special about that, Scott. Let me just go through the regular channel. But I think we've grown a lot in our relationship. You know, I'm not leaving North Charleston, but I've been there for other people. So but my God, I've been there for 40 years. For 40 years I've lived in North Charleston. And like you said, I was born there, and I don't plan to leave there. So no, I've got I think a good working relationship. There's so much to do there, so much still to do for Black, where we have pretty much have gone from Charleston to North Charleston, and now we Goose Creek, we're Somerville, we all the way in Ridgeville for Black people to find a place to stay.
What do you hope the NAACP's plan will be to slow gentrification, Ms. Dodd?
That's a hard one. I might have to stay another year for that. No, that is a hard, because economics plays such a strong part, and all of you would want to say, oh, it's just discrimination. The discrimination might be at the root of it, where economically folks can't move around, and we don't really put as much money as we spend for everything else, that we put enough money in affordable housing. I read an article about affordable housing that was built here recently with all that mess. And the builder didn't do what they're supposed to do.
Homes.
And I'm saying that's the kind of stuff that now these people are going to have to move to get it fixed. Do we pay attention to the same quality of housing we put minorities in or lower income people in? Because it's not just, when you listen, you realize it's just not minority, it's lower income people. But we are not spending the kind of money to do so. We're not spending, now that building that we were in, but they decided, this is supposed to be a pastor's building, that when the acquisition, when pastors was, when it was born, it was pretty much, we're going to use this as our office space. That's what they did in their gathering space. And then they were going to build these affordable housing. Well, there was one that was built right on the east side there, and in fact, the two young girls that they actually lived in there, and that's how we found out about that. But then now pastors say, you know what? And what really, what the hiccup about us moving is that we are a nonprofit organization, and for that to be a part of the nonprofit that the federal government invested in, now we're going to sell it because we can get more money out of it now. And if we were putting all that money back into really building more houses, because we talk more about the housing and how much, and you think about how long has this organization been in place, and you tell me how many houses. So the part of me being so upset, if indeed what they were doing with the with funding and really building these houses, because the building that we were in, I mean, it was literally rotting down with the roof and everything, and no repairs were being done to it. So now when we get this, because now we can really make some money off it now, so we're going to make it all office space now, and you guys need to get out.
And that's the real story.
That's the real story. I'm sticking to it.
Wow. So, Ms. Dawn, who's going to replace you?
Oh my God. I don't know. Our mom just had one daughter. I really have no idea. And we know there are people out there. There are folks out there. I'm not speaking as if, I am, nobody can do this. No. I didn't even think I could do this. You understand? This is something that we've got many folks out there that can do this and even do it better. You understand? And I'm not being facetious when I say that, because as much as you think you may have done, there's always someone that can even do it better, take it to the next level. So I don't know who that person is, but if that person comes to the table with a willingness, first, to follow the guidelines of the NAACP, they're serious about this organization. Is about 115 years old. This one is over 107.
Wow.
So you can tell how old this branch is compared to the national. If following the rule, build relationship with these businesses. When I say relationship, and most of the businesses are willing to support if they believe that the work you're doing is like what my good John Lewis would say, getting in good trouble, good work, and it does mean we get in good trouble too, but you get in good trouble to do good work. And so I think that's the mindset of, I'm not in this to make some money. I'm not in this to make me a name. I'm in this because I'm committed to making lives better for folks, particularly the minority community. And if never before now, when we look at the situation that with the young mothers, these young children, and the education system, we've got far more to do now than we had, and I can't remember such time since I've been in this position. So that's where I think we need to focus on folks who are committed to not to get into a position for the sake of having a position. Folks who do understand that it's not a job that is monetary pay.
Right.
There's pay there. I'm here, living witness that it is so much satisfaction and gratification to know that you could have, somebody who probably wouldn't have slept well this night or the night before, and you were able to do something to make a difference. That is everything. That's the big thing. And if we are able to bring people in there with a mindset of that, and not that we're out there to go for the sake of physical fight, because that's the last thing we want to do. It is almost degrading to me for us to have to go and protest to get what is rightfully ours. If our neighborhood is not being taken care of, we're not getting the public services, municipal services and stuff, then to me, that's insulting. So we shouldn't have to beg for those kinds of stuff. So when we get someone in place and they realize that, you got to deal with the police department, you got to deal with the mayor's office, you've got to deal with some of these big businesses that really have a clout. And there are some business people out here that are really keen on civil rights, and they will work with you if they think you're working. But don't expect that this job is one that's going to be paying your bills.
Dot Scott, president of the NAACP of Charleston, thank you so much for your time again. Welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much. I am so pleased to be with you today. I haven't seen you in a while, but thank you for coming to see me.
Yeah, for all of these years, too.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.